So let me give you a case study of a potential scenario one might be in. So let's say you are a leader or maybe an executive at Disney, maybe in your mid-50s, you're married, you have a couple children, and you're heading towards retirement. You're pretty much at peak earning years, potentially some higher growth within the company still left. However, you're really wanting to start to nail down your financial situation, but you're also probably at the busiest time of your life with children that are maybe high school, about to be in college, and all of the craziness of life. Plus, you're a leader, so you have all of the different leadership responsibilities at work. And so whenever you get home, you're just dog tired. You don't really want to figure this stuff out. You don't want to know, you don't want to spend time on this. You'd rather go spend time with family, go boating, something of that nature. So let me give you 5 things to think about if that's your scenario. That's a potential area or stage of life that you're in. First thing is the goals or objectives. With any good strategy, really the first thing that we need to understand is, what are you trying to accomplish? When do you want to accomplish it by? And what's the priority level that you want to associate to that? It could be, maybe you want to retire when you're 60. And so that's going to be a different strategy than if you want to retire when you are 70, for example. So the first thing to really think about and get crystal clear on is setting what are those objectives. The next 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, where do you see yourself? Of course, those will always change, and in any good plan, you're always going to want to review it, but we first have to have a base case scenario that we're trying to operate under. That's going to be different for every person. Maybe it's stopping at 60 to then do consulting for the next 5 years, or maybe it's stopping at 55 and getting a somewhat mindless job from 55 to 65 that just kind of pays the bills but is less stressful than the leadership role that you're currently in. So a lot of different options there, and all of those are going to have different permutations. So step 1 is what are the goals and objectives that you have? Step 2 to think about is your compensation and taxation. In peak earning years, you have probably Disney LTI or RSUs that are getting paid out. You have bonus income. Of course, you have your salary, which is probably a pretty healthy salary by now. And you may also have other tax implications to think about. For instance, if you are saving, let's say you've been saving your bonus, you've been getting Disney stock as a bonus. All of that is then after-tax investments that we need to be thinking about. What are the tax ramifications associated with making changes in those and being tax smart when it comes to the planning side of things? Now, of course, Disney will withhold taxes automatically on your salary and on your bonus income, but also we don't want to get in a situation where you're always getting a ton of money back either. So it's looking at what is your salary withholding really is the only thing that you can kind of mess with. The bonus income is taxed at a set rate, and that kind of is what it is. But the salary withholding, we can look at making adjustments to that, or maybe it's tweaking up your 401k contribution, or maybe even using, instead of a traditional contribution, a Roth contribution, things of that nature, to nail down what are your current taxes and how do we minimize those, but also be smart about minimizing them not only now, but in the future too. So sometimes it's looking at taxes today, but also at what is that next objective, and do you need to be smart about realizing taxes maybe now or later or what have you. The next thing that I think about is the investment strategy. When it comes to this phase of life, you have taken risks, you've climbed the ladder, you're in a good spot income-wise, and so it's only natural to start to think about possibly changing your investment approach. You have probably built up a pretty good nest egg by now, and it's not so much about growing that rather than starting to protect that. But you still want to have that growth prospect, so you don't want to give up the growth, but you also want to not take as much risk maybe as you did before. And so thinking through the investment strategy, what are the right investment vehicles? Maybe it also is part about thinking of what's the right vehicle to be investing in. Of course, you have the company 401k, but you have, with excess income, you have other options to think about and consider, from a non-qualified investment account to potentially annuities or life insurance or real estate or businesses. There's all a bunch of different options that could be considered, and each of those are going to carry their own risk-return profile, and each of them are going to carry their own tax implications as well. So thinking about how much risk do you want to take, how much risk are you comfortable taking, and how much risk do you need to take to be able to gain the goals and objectives that you're trying to set out. When it comes also to that, the next thing that I think about is having the appropriate amount of insurance coverages. Yes, the company does provide insurance. However, once you're in your 50s, the cost benefit of the group insurance plan is maybe not in your benefit, and it may be better to look at insurances potentially outside of the group plan, depending on your health, right? So everybody's health is different, and so if you have certain health issues, then maybe the group insurance is the best way to go. However, if you're a fairly healthy person, you may be able to get some better options outside of the company, and you may need more insurance outside of the company as well, because now your income is higher. So the insurance that the company provides may not be enough to be able to cover if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, whether you pass away or whether you become disabled. Those scenarios can drastically impact your financial plans, especially this last 5 or 10 years away from retirement. You don't necessarily want to leave your spouse hanging and having to use assets that were really meant to be used 5 or 10 years from now. And that 5 or 10 year difference really can make a huge difference, especially now that your portfolio has gotten to the size where that 5 or 10 years, the earnings from that 5 or 10 years could be more than the old earnings that you've saved up to this point. So we want to be really cognizant of protecting the what ifs at this stage of life as well. The last thing that I would say to think about along those same lines as far as protecting the what ifs is making sure you have the right documents in place. Your kids are probably getting to the age, maybe they're already 18 or about to be 18, and so you know who they are now. Are they going to be a responsible adult? If something happened to you and your spouse, are they going to be able to take on that amount of wealth? Is that a responsibility or a burden that you want to lay on them? Or perhaps maybe we need to do some sort of estate planning to protect them from themselves until they're at an age or a time where you feel they would be able to responsibly handle the resources that they may end up receiving. Not only thinking about your children, but also thinking about maybe charitable support as well. What sort of legacy do you want to leave? And these things all then conspire into your estate planning documents as far as what are your wishes if you were to become incapacitated. Who do you want to make decisions? Who's going to be the backup? Your kids maybe aren't ready to, but your parents are probably now too old to. Maybe there's a sibling, but if you don't have any siblings, maybe there are other options. Sometimes there's corporations that will take on those roles. Sometimes there are attorneys that will take on those roles. There's options to think through as far as who's going to take on responsibilities for managing your wealth if you are unable to do so, or if you are, if you pass away. And hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's good to have the plans in place because it could be a total nightmare otherwise. So those are a few areas of financial planning that I would really be thinking about if I'm in my 50s and I'm making pretty good money, and you work at Disney and you're executive, you have bonus income, you have LTI, you have stock income, and you have all these different moving pieces, and you're really gearing towards that last stretch of your career. There's a lot to think about. Time is short and so precious, so hopefully that gives you some help.